Good day, TBU fans, and welcome back to Week 5 previews and fixtures. I am filling in for the Donphanatic this week as he is unable to record. Now, Week 5 follows much of the patterns of the previous weeks before last week in the sense that it's a inter-division match instead of an intra-division match. So, of course, Alpha versus Alpha, Omega versus Omega. Without getting further ado, let's start off with the St. Louis Chattots versus the Meath Mammoth Swines for the Alpha Division. Now, these two teams are directly in the center of their league table, and both of them have a quite high chance of actually getting into third place and coming back into the playoffs. As no matter what, one of these teams are coming out 3-2, which means that they will most likely make third, especially if the Pittsburgh Pyro lose their match. Now, the Meath Mammoth Swines has a bit more to gain in this, not in the sense that he will gain a point, but more in the sense that since he has a much higher differential to the Pittsburgh Pyro, if he wins, he will be very close, and if he wins since it's only a 1 differential point difference, he could even overtake the Pittsburgh Pyro at the end of this match. St. Louis Chattots, more or less the same story, except that the differential is quite lower, meaning that if the Pittsburgh Pyro win, there is no chance that they're overtaking them. But aside from this, two teams that are in the middle of the table that both have a very good chance of making the playoffs. Coming in the next match is the Pittsburgh Pyro versus the Western Weavings. So as I was saying before, the Pittsburgh Pyro are 2-2, much the same as the Meath Mammoth Swines and the St. Louis Chattots. They want a win just to try and keep up with their competition, as a lot of 2-2 teams are fighting off, meaning a lot of 2-2 teams are guaranteed at becoming 3-2 teams. But it also means that a lot of teams are guaranteed becoming 2-3, which means that there is a bit of a buffer zone between him and the bottom of the table, but considering teams will be above him if he loses, he can't really let that happen. Western Weavings, on the other hand, they still technically have a playoff contention, I think, but aside from that, just going for their first win just will boost their confidence. I mean, they might be able to salvage some spots, be able to leapfrog a few people in the very end of the very end of the weeks, meaning that they might be able to salvage a few spots. The next match we have are the AS Monferno versus the Wolverhampton Weavers. Wolverhampton Weavers, another 2-2 team, another team trying to just grasp that playoff spot, and is so close considering there are again 4 teams that are 2-2, and 2 of those teams are facing each other, meaning that he has a chance to at the bare minimum leapfrog one person if he wins. However, the AS Monferno, on the other hand, 1-3, still has a okay chance at playoffs, but considering there are a lot of teams that will be above him at the end of this week, no matter what, he still has a lot of work to do, and especially if the Pittsburgh Pyro wins, it means he will have to try and overtake 3 or 4 different coaches just to try and get to the playoff contention. Next up, we have the Dallas Staravia and the Juventus, a top table scrap. We have the Dallas Staravia 4-0 and the Juventus 3-1. Both teams are trying to keep a leg ahead of their competition, as if the Dallas Staravia lose, then that means that the Juventus may be able to tie themselves with the Dallas Staravia. It also means that the Dallas Staravia will be much, much closer to the surplus of 3-2 teams at the end of this week. The Juventus, on the other hand, are just trying to take down the Dallas Staravia and make sure that they're 1 win ahead of all the other teams, so that they're not trying to fight for that playoff contention, which nobody likes doing. So then we will move on to the Omega Division. We start off with the Tampa Bay Luxray and the Bristol Beedoofs. These are again a top table fight, but 2 3-1 teams, both of them trying to get a leg up on their competition. Unlike the Dallas Staravia and the Juventus, both of them have another competitor in the form of the Munchlax United that have the same win-loss as themselves. What this means is that one of them is guaranteed to be a leg ahead of everyone else, and one of them is almost guaranteed to be tied for 3rd or even 4th. Again, this is depending on the Munchlax United, as well as the Gothenburg Garchomps and the Phoenix Sunflora on what happens to them, but one of these teams will be pushed back into the pack, and that is not where they want to be. They want to make sure that they're in 1st, 2nd, or 3rd so they can get to the playoffs. Next up, we have the Somerset Scissors versus the St. Louis Sableye. Now, both of these two teams are quite low. They have only 1 win and 3 loss, but again, much like the AS Monferno, they are not technically out of playoff contention. At the end of this week, they will not be able to make 4th place. It will definitely start making a push for them to try and get back into the pack and try and actually catch up on 3rd place. So the next match we have are the Phoenix Sunflora and versus the Sublime Salamence. Phoenix Sunflora 2-2 and the Sublime Salamence 1-3. Phoenix Sunflora just trying to keep up, as the Omega Division, much more than the Alpha Division, is starting to spread apart, and with not really much of a middle. And so the Phoenix Sunflora, this match for them, as well as the Gothenburg Garchomps, basically defines which side of the line are they on. Are they on the winning side or the losing side? This is very big for them, because if they lose, they are almost not necessarily out of playoff contention. As I said, a lot of teams are technically still in it. It will make it very, very difficult for them, as well as due to the fact that the teams that are in playoff contention must lose a lot. Whereas the Sublime Salamence, again, kind of the same story, except for the fact that they're 1 win behind. Technically in the playoff contention, but there's not much hope for them. There's not much hope for them, but they still can technically make it. And so, of course, they should still they should still push for it. Now, moving on to the final match, we have the Munchlaxter United and the Gothenburg Garchomp. Munchlaxter are at 3-1 and the Gothenburgs are at 2-2. Again, just like the Phoenix Sunflora, the Garchomps are just trying to stay in the winning side. If they lose this match, they'll be pushed into the losing side, making it very difficult for them to catch back up. The Munchlaxter United, on the other hand, is much the same. If they lose, they will be overtaken by the Gothenburg Garchomps no matter what, just because of the way their differentials are. However, if they win, they may be able to actually leapfrog the Tampa Bay Luxray if they lose. And if the Bristol Bidoof lose really bad, may be able to leapfrog them if the Tampa Bay Luxrays win. Very big match for both teams, because this more or less decides their fate in the table. If they win, if either of the teams win, it means that they will have a very good chance of making playoffs. And even if it's not a very good chance, like if the Gothenburg Garchomps win as well as the Phoenix Sunflora, it will still put them at a place where they do have a good chance to win, and they're still tied for 3rd place, or still tied for 2nd place, sorry. Whereas if the Munchlaxter United win, it pushes the Gothenburg Garchomps out of the race. Well, not out of the race, but it pushes them to a point where they don't really have a big chance of coming back. So as you can see, this is a very crucial week, and very interesting one as well, with top tier teams facing each other. So I'm very excited for it, and I hope you are too, and I'll see you guys next week.